I started this quilt to deal with grief, thinking it would give me something positive and challenging to focus on. I decided I would make a baby quilt for a friend who was moving to another country. And as the stack of blocks grew, I started to feel better. But it also made me nervous that I would mess up those beautiful blocks. My perfectionism took over and the project stalled. But their moving date kept getting closer. I have a deadline to finish the quilt. I had so much time because I started in July. It's now the beginning of October. And this is where I left off. A stack of blocks, which is enough to finish the quilt top. I was in a bit of a rough state in July when I started the quilt. I was overwhelmed with grief a lot of the days and not sleeping very well. Starting the quilt did help me through that period, and we're now a couple of months along and I'm feeling a lot better. I'm still thinking about my grandmother a lot of the times. I have sad moments, but it's not as overwhelming as it was. Working with your hands, I don't know, it just takes you out of your head into the moment, and that's really helpful. Talking about this moment, I need to take this pile of quilt blocks and turn them into a top. I am a little bit unsure if they are going to fit together well and if all the points of the stars are going to be intact, but I'm just going to have to find out because this is what I'm working with. But I have 2 weeks to finish the quilt. I'm not quite sure if that's enough. It's just going to have to be sufficient time because that's all I have. So this is where I left off last time. I made some stacks and arranged it the same way that I did in July. And I'm wondering, because some prints have a direction, do I want to keep that direction intact or be completely random about it? For example, the little girl in the print, here she's, well, upside down, there she's on her side. I think I like the randomness of it. And I'm not sure if all the color values are nicely distributed. So I'm going to turn it into black and white to see what that looks like. I don't think I'm even going to change anything. Now you might be watching this video and thinking, oh no, what are you doing? Switch those around. I'm curious. No, I think I'm actually happy with it. I think it's fun that some of the blocks are, I think this one here, it's a little bit off compared to the other ones, but I like that imperfection. I think I'm going to start sewing it together. It seemed so simple when I was watching people sew their quilt tops, but sitting at my sewing machine instead of a screen, I had so many questions. Do I really like the layout? Am I forgetting an important step? Will I mess up my beautiful blocks? I noticed I was hesitant to start. But the answers would have to be earned by sitting behind a sewing machine and not by staring at a screen. So these are positioned like this, so I need to sew this side, I think. I had to keep thinking, if it's fixable, just keep sewing. That, and let's be honest, nothing like a deadline for that extra little push. Oh, that one looks pretty good. Oh, wait, they're like this, I think. Oh, I'm so confused already. But the points are intact on this one. And on this one. And on this one too. I need to be more organized. So the first one, I have the lighter ones in the corner. Do I need to trim them before I sew them together? Let's just finish this one. And then sew this one. I think it looks okay. Oh, I love the colors. It is a little bit confusing if I should have trimmed the blocks, but they seem to fit together nicely, so I'm guessing I might run into the problem of them not matching up on this once I sew the strips together. I did see some of the seam allowances sort of not folded correctly, so I need to press those, and I need to pick off all the little threads. There are so many of them. Wow. Okay, ironing board. It's time for stack number 2, and let's see if I can keep track of organization a little bit better. Also, does it really matter? I'm not sure. This is a case of quilt around and find out. So, oh, I need to, this is number 1. I need to, this is the bottom. I just twisted the blocks because the seams weren't nesting, and I think I need to keep an eye out for that. So let's see how this one turns out. So we have a start, and I think it looks good. They are the same length, so that's a good sign. I did follow the pattern like dark, light, dark, light. And I'm excited to see how it's going to look when it's all put together. And I'm not going to bore you with all that, so I'm just going to sew and show you the end result. Ta-da! Okay, that went. I made one mistake switching blocks around, but I made a bigger mistake. And remember when I said earlier, would it matter if I switch the direction of the blocks? And of course it matters because of the seam allowances. So now I have seam allowances that are not nested, but on top of each other, and not in every spot, but in enough places that it is a little bit worrying. Yeah, I should have thought about that. Okay, next step, I'm going to sew all these sides together, and then I will check back in. I didn't want these blocks to end up as a line on my forever to-do list, because even though they hold the promise of a quilt, you can't use them to cuddle under or build a blanket fort. So I kept sewing, and I turned the quilt blocks into a perfectly imperfect quilt top. And even though I didn't quite feel ready for the next steps, the quilt top was. Some of my earlier questions were answered because I did love how it came together, but whether or not those bulky seams would be a problem, I would have to keep sewing to find out.